What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Tony Swedberg. Today I have a special guest, Jake.
How's it going?
And last name?
Ryan.
Ryan. Okay, and your Instagram?
JakeRyan.io.
Great. So Jake is the one who trained me in solar. So even a trainer has a trainer. You can always learn more, and you got to stay open and keep learning, because then you're going to stay engaged and everything like that. In my first month, I give all credit to Jake, and I'm so happy you made some time to come on the YouTube channel.
Awesome, man. Happy to be here.
Cool. So tell me, how long have you been doing solar?
So I've really been in, I guess, in-home home improvement sales / solar, for about 11 years. It started out mostly roofing and air conditioning, insulation, energy packages. About a year into that, I had designed a sales process that kind of flipped the script on everything. As you know, I kind of train everything backwards, yeah. Right? So, there's a typical sales process that I'm sure a lot of your viewers are familiar with, and most people in sales in general is, kind of the standard process, right? You build, you make a friend, you find a pain point, you offer a solution, and then you present your product and give a price, and then all the objections come out at the end, right? And so, I found that was kind of backwards, because you were putting all the pressure at the end of the process. And so, I flipped the script on that, had some great success really early on with some home improvement companies. Met a guy that was in solar. I was explaining this to him. He's like, "Hey, do you think this could work for solar?" I was like, "Well, pitch me on solar," right? So he gave me his solar pitch, and I was like, "Yeah, this will actually definitely work." So he was like, "Well, I want to fly you out to Denver, come and train my people." That first solar company we took from 8 million to 38 million in 18 months. And, it's just kind of been the solar space ever since then, right? So yeah. A lot of those companies still involve HVAC, roofing, and things like that, but solar's been the primary focus for about a decade now.
Okay, great. So for these guys are most likely looking into selling solar, or they're selling solar already. What would you say someone can make selling solar, or what have you made in a year selling solar? If you're good, we're gonna just go if you're good.
Yeah. So it's a big range, right? It's just like, there's a handful of really good opportunities out there. Again, I've trained and consulted companies in all types of different industries. What I can tell you is that solar is one of the easiest barrier to entry. And when I say that, I'm talking about it's the easiest place for a person who doesn't really have much experience, but has a desire to learn. Can easily go and make six figures in their first year if they're not even good, right? This is something where pretty much anybody you could pick up off the street, as long as you're not too ugly, and as long as you don't have a speech impediment and you can talk to people, right? You're pretty much guaranteed to make six figures. Now, moving down that line, once you actually master, the art of closing and understand solar, it's easily something where an average guy can go and knock out $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month. And that's pretty consistent across the board. As long as you have, lead flow and you have the skills to close, there's no reason that you can't average, $30,000 a month. Now on the upside of that, right, you're talking about high performers, you're talking about people who, the average closing percentage in the industry is 20 to 30%, right? So the average guy is still making six figures, closing at 20 to 30%, right? And as you know, once you go through my training, you're closer to 80% plus.
90% my first month.
Yeah. So that's what we like to hear. So, if you're in that category, right now, you're talking about 50, 60, 70,000. I know guys who do a combination of in-home and virtual. So because they're able to see more people doing some virtual calls as well, there's plenty of those guys that are making six figures a month. So,
and that's the whole solar sale virtually, just over the phone. Do they FaceTime when they do that? I haven't done it.
It depends. So I've sold deals direct over phone calls. Okay. I've sold, literally probably, I don't know, 100 deals maybe, just never even seeing the person's face.
Okay.
So a lot of it really just depends. So virtual is a different approach, because the in-home sale is a lot about control, right? It's about controlling the dynamic, controlling the conversation, controlling the flow of everything. Virtual is a lot more about compliance. It's about getting the person to comply with your process, because you're not in person. You don't have that personable feel. You don't have the nonverbal communication, right? The body language and all those things. You really are tied to your script and your ability to have great vocal tonality. Mm-hmm. And so, to build trust in that way, it's a little bit of a different process virtually. But again, you're able to talk to more people in less time. So, it's kind of just a trade-off. It's a different approach, but it's not that difficult to learn one or the other once you know one of them.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So what advice would you give somebody just starting out in solar? Would you recommend that they started knocking doors, or you think they should go and find a company that gives leads, and or maybe even buy their own leads?
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on the person, right? Some people are more motivated to be out in the field. Some people are more motivated, to have it teed up for them and knock it out of the park. Some people are more motivated to go and get referrals and things like that. I know guys who, have big networks on social media. They reach out to those people. That's where they start, right? And they kind of build their warm market from there. They get referrals from there. They're able to generate their own leads. I know guys who go out and knock doors. I know guys who get leads purchased for them by a company, or guys who go out and purchase their own leads. Myself personally, I believe that if you're brand new, there's nothing wrong with maybe trying out a few different methods. But if you have the proper training and for example, that you can close 80% or better. In my mind, if that, to me, that's being a master closer, right? And if you're a master closer, then there's no point of you spending any time doing anything except closing. So if you have the proper training and that you can pretty much close any person that's got a heartbeat and a credit score, then there should be no reason you're spending time prospecting or knocking doors or buying leads or running. You should literally just find a place that you can plug into that can provide you with leads, and you can just close.
And you're always a good ROI for them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you're always, any company out there, it's just like a car lot, right? You can go walk on any car lot as long as you can talk, and as long as you can close. You can walk on any car lot and get a job, mm-hmm. right? Because they just need sales, and they're not paying you unless you make a sale. So pretty much anybody out there, it's one of the easiest, again, when I say barrier to entry, you don't have to have a great resume to get a job in solar, right? You can pretty much have no experience, right? So as long as you're able to get the proper training, then you don't, again, have that barrier to entry, and you can come in, and as long as you're a net positive for the company, you're going to make money, and you're going to make the company money. I always tell people, there's very few people that ever get fired in solar. They just fire themselves because they don't perform.
Yeah. Okay. So that was a great answer, and I'm actually learning. When I'm looking at him, I'm like, I'm still learning some stuff. So now there's been some guys that I've had to let go personally, because they're like, I always call it like machine guns. They just give all this information, and they're just telling the customer what they think they want to hear.
Yep.
Your road to a sale, what would you say is the best thing to focus on during a sale? Is it listening? Is it talking about how it works?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a mix of listening and educating, right? I think that a lot of people, they look at sales as marketing, right? And to me, sales and marketing are two different sides of the same coin. Marketing is the billboard, right? It's, hey, look at me, this is what I have, this is what I do, here's my nice shiny product, here's why you should buy from me. And to me, that's not a sale, right? A sale is, I have two definitions of a sale. There's an emotional sale and a logical sale. An emotional sale is just simply a transfer of emotion, right? I'm getting you to feel the same way that I feel about something. So if I feel that this is a good deal for you and that you should move forward with this, I'm getting you to feel the same way. And then a logical sale, by my definition, is actually making a decision for the prospect, making a decision for your client in a way that they're so comfortable with that they're convinced they made the decision themselves, right? And so a lot of people would look at that and say, well, that's manipulation, right? And I agree, it is, right? But again, there's such thing as positive manipulation, which is what we call persuasion, right? So if you are somebody who, for example, let's say I said, hey, Tony, let's go skydiving, right? And you said, man, there's no way I'm going skydiving, right? I don't like planes, I don't like pilots, I don't like parachutes, I don't trust any of them, I'm not interested, right?
That's pretty much
And so let's just say, right, for the next 2 weeks, right, I just manipulated you into going skydiving, right? I used whatever tactics I had to use. Maybe I bullied you a little bit, and got on your ego a little bit and called you weak for not wanting to do it. Maybe I used seduction. Maybe I told you that, this girl that you're really interested in, she was like really into guys who are daredevils, right?
Yeah.
Or, what if I enticed you or if I bribed you, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Because when I convince you in 2 weeks to go skydiving and we jump out of that plane and we hit the ground and you come running over to me and you give me a big hug and you say, oh my, thank you so much, Jake, for making me do that.
Yeah.
That was the greatest experience of my life, right? I know that I left you better than I found you, right? So as long as you're selling a product or service that you truly believe in and that you truly know you're going to leave your prospect better than you found them, it is not only your ability, but it's your job, right, to convince this person, not to convince this person, but to manipulate this person or to persuade this person into you making the decision for them, right? You know all along that they're going to sign on the line, that they're going to take out this loan for this product, and that once they have this product and service, even if they don't believe it, even if they're not convinced per se, that once the product is working, it speaks for itself, and that you're going to leave them better than you found them. They're going to be happy. So as long as you know that there's a positive outcome to it, I believe that it's okay to use whatever tactics that you need to get that done. And so, a unique thing about solar is most sales are either an emotional or a logical sale. The unique thing about solar is it's both, right? Because it has to be emotional to get people to act quickly, to have that one call closed so you're not a follow-up king, but also to have the logical side of it so when people wake up in the morning and realize they just signed a contract for $40,000, they don't think, well, what did I just do, right? They now have the logic because you've programmed it in them to remind themselves why they made that decision and how it's going to benefit them. So I would say that to route back to your question, what's the most important thing? First of all, it's definitely listening, right? Being more interested than interesting, right? Understanding that if a prospect has you on the phone or has you in their home, there is some sort of interest there. Somebody clicked on a button, they seen an ad, they filled out a form, right? They answered their door, right? They set an appointment, whatever it is, right? Somehow, whether somebody knocked their door, they filled out something online, they got a cold call, at some point in time, they agreed to have you sitting with them having this discussion. So, knowing that, you have to understand and determine what that reason is, right? And if you really just take your time to genuinely listen to people, and when I say genuinely listen, there's a lot of talk in the sales industry about things like neuro-linguistic programming, right? And mirroring people, and a lot of salespeople I think they're very surface level, listening to what somebody says just to give them a rebuttal or just to give them an answer or just to tell them why they're right or why they're wrong, right? Just to sound smart of having the right thing to say after it. And I think that that's a big mistake. I think that genuinely listening to people and understanding what their goals are and what their objective is, I think that if you truly understand why somebody's sitting with you, then you can truly understand what the motivating factors are to sell them. So, listening is primary, and then, from that is just making sure that you're educated on your product and service, and that you're able to answer the questions that they have, and also being just plugged into the right people. So yourself, right? You have given me a call on several of these calls when you don't know the answer, right? Because that's what you should be doing, right? Don't ever lie to your customers. Don't ever make up something, right? Especially in this industry, and especially it's 2023. People can Google anything, right? I've been shadowing a trainee before, right, and heard them say something that was incorrect, and the homeowner be acting like they're texting someone, and me looking at the person like, hey, you need to get their attention back before correcting them, knowing that I'm going to go and correct what they're saying. But really the person was looking that up and said, oh, that's not right.
Yeah.
You know, so don't ever lie to your prospects, right? Don't ever try to, you know, pull the wool over their eyes. If you don't know something, right, just say, hey, you know what? I just recently moved over from the customer service department or whatever. I just recently was promoted to this position. That's actually a question I don't know. Let me call and get my manager on the phone so that I can get the proper answer for you.
And it's always great to hear, like, he's super educated, as he said, 11 years in solar. So when you call somebody, you know, with that much experience and knowledge, I mean, I've never heard somebody throw a question at him. I don't care who your prospect is, if they're an Indian guy or somebody who's been researching for the past 3 years and has solar like everywhere, and you know, and they just ask him a question, he has the answer. So when they see people like that in your company, it brings a lot of value to that sale, and they know they're going with the right company, and being, you know, the customer being closed on that company is going to do the right job, and it's not some thrown together company that's going to be smoking cigarettes on their roof when they buy solar is important. And another couple things I just wrote down is, like, when somebody says I need to talk to my wife about it or I need to think about it, does that, what's that mean? Does that mean you went somewhere wrong in the process, or, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you just skipped over something, right? So, you know, a lot of people, a lot of salespeople, they just take objections at face value, and most of the time, the objection isn't the real objection, right? So I tell people that there's only really one reason that somebody doesn't buy from you and doesn't buy from you right away, and that's trust. But that breaks down into a couple pieces, right? So it's either they don't trust you, they don't trust your company, they don't trust your product, or they don't trust your price. So one of those four things are the reason that somebody's not buying. So I always explain to people that you have to build trust, and it has to be built in that order. So you have to build trust with yourself, with the client, right? So that's where building rapport is extremely important. And not the surface level, you know, rapport of like, you know, hey, you have a nice car, you know, I mean, that stuff works as small talk to open up conversation. But really, when I talk about building rapport, it's more about understanding who you're dealing with, understanding a little bit more, asking questions about the person to understand the person a little bit better, and then also doing some things to establish yourself as an expert, right? And letting that person know that you've seen the situations like this 100 times before, right? You are the expert when it comes to that. So it's building trust in you that you're going to give them the proper information, right? The second thing is building trust in the company, and that can come from, you know, telling stories about other homeowners in situations like theirs. It can come from, you know, visually showing them the reviews on your company. Something that a lot of people do is they'll waste time saying like, hey, we're a 5-star rated company on Google, right? Well, why wouldn't you just take the time to show them that?
Yeah.
Right? Like, pull it up and say, hey, just wanted to show you our reviews and our happy customers, right? Because people visually, when somebody sees something and it matches what you're saying, anytime that you can show somebody something after you just said it, you're again building trust. You're anchoring trust because they're seeing that reality matches what you say. So the more and more things that you tell them, the more and more things that they're seeing as real. Okay, so the third thing is, you know, trusting your product, right? So, you know, making sure that you have all the necessary information that you need about your product. Now, you might not know the specific heat coefficient on the certain panel that you're selling, right? You might not know the exact efficiency, right? And this is something where, especially in solar, people get way too deep into the technical side of things, right? People get way too concerned about the type of panels and the type of inverters. Now listen, there's garbage materials out there, and you know, as long as it's, you know, quality tier 1 stuff, right? As long as you have the right type of inversion system for the right type of house, right? Micro inverters aren't always the answer for every property. String inverters or hybrid inverters aren't always the answer for every property. You don't always need, you know, the top of the line panel for every single. It's a different situation for every home. As long as you know what you're selling in a general sense, and your managers aren't saying, well, don't worry about it, it's the best. As long as you're educated on what it is that you're selling, then that pretty much takes care of the product, right? Because you can overcome, any other types of questions that they have. You can explain to them why those are the best products for them. Something that it comes back to asking questions, right? Is, I might show somebody, 2 versions and say, hey, this is this type of panel, or this is this type of panel, this is this type of inverter. These are 2 different options we could use on your home. Here's why this is what I would recommend. Which one of these do you think makes sense to you, right? And so again, it's typically, as long as that's another way that you gauge trust. Because if you gauge trust and establish yourself as an expert, and then you recommend something, and then ask them what they would prefer, if they say the opposite thing than what you recommended, then you know they don't really trust you as the expert, right? Yeah. So again, it's these little tie downs, and it's these little reaffirming steps of understanding, did I get the trust built in myself? Did I get the trust built in my company? Let me ask you, is this a company you feel comfortable doing business with, right? And a lot of guys are scared to ask these salesy questions, right? But I'm telling you, in my decade of experience of training hundreds and hundreds of salespeople, dozens and dozens of companies, the guys who try to not sound salesy, the guys who try to avoid being a salesman, they come off more shady.
Yeah, they pick it up like that.
They come off more shady than people who are just like, hey, I'm here to sell you something. Yeah. I'm not trying to hide being a salesperson. Yeah. I genuinely believe that salespeople have the most important job in the world, right? I don't believe, do I believe that it's more important than a doctor? Yes, I do. Because do I believe it's more important than an attorney? Somebody has to sell that, right? Somebody has to sell the prescriptions to the doctor to be able to get them to prescribe them. Somebody has to sell the scalpels and the materials to the doctor to be able to work. Somebody has to sell the patient on the marketing company is on why they should go to this specialist, right? So sales is how products get to market, right? It's the middleman of how everything gets into market, and I believe it's one of the most important jobs, on the planet. And again, building that trust. So you built your trust in your product, and then building trust in your price, right? And building trust in your price is how you establish value, and it doesn't necessarily always mean that you're going to have the cheapest price, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have the most expensive price. It means that you're going to have a fair price, and that price should match up with the value that you have. If you overcome all 4 of those trust factors, then you're always going to create a laydown, right? You're never going to have those objections, and if you do have those objections, again, it's just a smokescreen, right? So if somebody says, hey, I need to I need to call my cousin in California because they have solar, right? Well, they just don't trust something you said. You just need to figure out what that is, right? And then that gets into objection handling. I don't know if you want to go through like Jedi mind trick stuff, but that gets into handling the objection once you've identified it. Now, something that you said was, I need to talk to my wife, okay? So this is, I have somewhat of an unpopular opinion on one legs. For in-home or virtual solar sales, I do not pitch one legs. I do not believe in pitching one legs.
Meaning the wife's not there.
Yeah, meaning that one of the spouse, the husband or wife or partner is not there, and so most sales companies are going to tell you pitch it anyway, right? They paid for a lead, they had somebody set the appointment, they agreed to come out, you're already there, pitch it. To me, I don't believe that that's a good method, simply because you're going to have a very high cancellation rate. You are explaining a ton of information. You're working through a pretty extensive psychological process of breaking somebody down and moving them into a space where they're making an agreement on something that is a contract value substantially higher than they probably expected. And most people, regardless of your dynamic, in your marriage, most people, if their spouse comes home and they have a $40,000 or $50,000 contract on the table, and they didn't even discuss it with the other person, they're probably gonna, throw a fit. So, what I say is that, again, the most basic rule in all of sales, ABC, always be closing, right? So, to me, a cancellation that takes away your close, right? So in my opinion, what you do is you close the next appointment. So what you do is you still spend time building a rapport, you still spend time doing your walk around, you still do the evaluation, you still build out the system, you still collect all the information, you still build trust in yourself, you still build trust in the company, you still build trust in the products, right? But then you take a step back and you say, hey, I've got everything ready. I'm going to take this back to my engineering or my design team and get something built out for you. It typically takes about 24 hours to get that done. When is a good time that I can come out tomorrow or the following day that would be a good time for you and your spouse both? That way we can all sit down. I can go over the numbers with you guys together. It's a lot of information, and it's just our company policy. Anybody that's on the property or the electric bill is here so that we provide all the accurate information. That way there's no misinformation or miscommunication between the two parties, right? So it's very simple to do that, and yes, maybe you're going to have to spend an extra trip and drive an hour, right? Maybe you're going to have to spend a little bit of extra time. Maybe it's going to take you a couple extra days to close the sale. But I can guarantee you that if you slow down and take the time to do that, you're going to have a much higher success rate and a much lower cancellation rate. And to me, that's worth it, right? Mm-hmm. Now, can you pitch one legs? Have we all sold them before? Yes. Do some of them not cancel? Sure, right? So, what I tell people, once you're at a skill level where you're able to genuinely read and interpret people, I will just put the pressure on somebody, early on, when I understand that they have a spouse, and, I might make a funny comment of, hey, listen, if this all makes sense to you today, the numbers all work out, is this something that you would be comfortable moving forward with without your spouse, or is this something that you'll have to discuss with them? And most people will say, yeah, it's all good, no problem, right? Most people are just going to say that, right? Yeah. Because they just want the numbers, right? And if they say that, then, I always double down on that. I say, okay, so if you came home with a brand new $60,000 Mercedes in the morning, she wouldn't have it, there'd be no issues at all. And if they're like, absolutely not, I make all my decisions, I'm good to go, then I'll hold on to that, and then I'll pitch it, right? And I'll hold that to the fire at the end of it. Yeah, but if there's any hesitation at all, if there's even the slightest bit of hesitation, right? Then I might make some comment. Well, I'm sure your wife doesn't, give you a call every time she's going to swipe your credit card to get her nails done, right? Yeah. However, this is a little bit different of a situation, right? And it's something that we require everybody that's on either the electric bill or the home. To be here just so we can get them proper information. So I'll kind of revisit that and then reset the appointment for them.
And sometimes I bet they'd respect that as well.
100%. Again, it builds trust.
Jake.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank
of course.
You so much.
Happy to be here.
Cool. And what was the Instagram again?
Yeah, it's jakeryan.io.
And he actually does one-on-one calls, right?
Yeah. So I offer one-on-one trainings. I do a free 15-minute evaluation if you're a solar company, an individual rep, if you have a sales organization or a team. I do a free 15-minute call to kind of understand where you're at, what your goals are, to see if we're a good fit. If that works out, I have everything from full-blown trainings for your entire team or for yourself that are intensive 2-week trainings. I also have the ability just to schedule 1-hour sessions via Zoom. So I'm happy to help you guys. There's a link in the bio of my Instagram that links you directly in to be able to book a call.
And that step-by-step process and that sales training is literally what built this company. I mean, if we just sent in guys trying to close solar deals, it wouldn't have worked out as well as it did. So
yeah, you guys are crushing it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming on. If you guys like the video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and comment what you want to see next.